We're going to be taking a deep look at Syracuse's offensive roster today. When we do this, it's not a strict 2025 outlook. We're not trying to predict their record in 25. It's going to be more of how do the young guys look? How are they set up for 25? And then how are they set up to succeed beyond 25? So we're going to be talking about some kids that might be impact players, not until 26 or maybe until 27. But taking a look at the roster here, just to remind you all, I have like a 7-point grading scale for the upperclassmen. Pretty self-explanatory, these grades here. And then for the underclassmen, we have the high-end developmental kids. Those are more like 5 stars or high-end 4 stars, usually kids that I watch and I like a whole lot. Purple are just generally 4 stars, and then red are 3 stars. We don't fall victim into being strict on their star rating. It's more we take a look and then decide how we feel. So look at the quarterback room. Steve Angeli and Michael Johnson Jr., the 2 seniors in this room. Steve Angeli's coming over from Notre Dame. 2 guys haven't really done much, but they're experienced. You know, they've been on college football teams before, which is something that you can't really say about some of these younger kids. So I think it'll be nice to have a bit of a veteran presence there. Don't necessarily think that they're guys that are going to be crazy good in 25, but with a lot of younger guys on the roster, definitely think having some experience there kind of caps the floor for the room. I think the ceiling, though, is going to be more maybe Ricky Collins in this upcoming season, sophomore, LSU transfer. Watching the high school film, what you're getting is a real pocket passer. I think it's a kid that can push the ball down the field. Don't think he has the best arm, but what really stood out to me was his ball placement. Good enough athlete. I don't think he's gonna set the world on fire on the ground, but a kid that I think has high upside for sure. He's penciled in as a starter right now. Jakari Williams is a guy that's also on the 2 deep as the backup. Couldn't find any film on him, so if you guys have any opinion on Jakari Williams, feel free to let me know. And then Luke Carney was a kid that I watched. Only a 3-star, but guy that I upgraded. I really like this kid a whole lot. Good ball placement. He's only a freshman. We're not going to be talking about him this upcoming season, I wouldn't imagine. Barring a absolute not a tragedy. Barring something unseen, I don't think you really see Carney playing all that much in 25. But a guy that if I was an Orange fan, I'd definitely be excited about seeing how he develops going into the future. I think he's a bit more athletic than Ricky Collins. Kind of a similar player, though, outside of that. Not a crazy arm, but really good ball placement downfield, which is something you really don't see from high school quarterbacks. Ricky Collins, obviously, a bit more developed, him going into his redshirt sophomore year. Carney was playing high school football last year. Like I said, not going to expect him to do all that much in this upcoming season. Now, looking at the running back room, they're going to have to replace a whole lot of production this upcoming season with LaQuint Allen graduating to the NFL. Will Nixon's a kid coming over from Nebraska, about 400 career rushing yards. Couldn't really find any tape on him. Not going to be a workhorse, but kind of a similar situation with the quarterback room. A guy that's a steady hand that's been there before. Now looking at these sophomores, I think there's a whole lot of talent in this running back room, specifically with this group of sophomores. So Usain Willis, second in rush yards, which, you hear, oh, we're bringing back our second rusher from last year. Well, they just threw the piss out of the ball, and LaQuint Allen really had all the rushing yards. So Usain Willis, second rusher in 2024, but also only had like 130 rushing yards. Didn't really see the field all that much. But watching, actually, this kid I couldn't find the high school tape on, so I had to go back and watch the 2024 orange and blue game. The spring game in the Carrier Dome, or I guess it's not the Carrier Dome, but I'm going to be calling that the Carrier Dome till I die. Kid that I liked a whole lot, 6'1", 226, massive. He's massive, and doesn't move like he's 226 or 6'1". I think he's real shifty. So kid that I don't necessarily think he'll be like a lead back that you can just lean on, but I don't think they need that because they have some good guys behind him. Jaden Hart, another kid, high school film I liked. I think he was only a 3-star. Another guy I upgraded to the middle development prospect. Real twitchy, good change of direction. Kid something that stuck out with him was such a good athlete, just not a good running back yet. So that was 2 years ago. He was in high school. You could just tell that there's a couple developmental things that he had athletic traits, but just has to kind of fill into a running back. And what that usually means is like vision, center of gravity. It's a different feat. Athleticism certainly is important at running back, but there is some mental aspects of it. And Hart's a guy that, watching the high school film from a couple years ago, wasn't there mentally, but athletically, I definitely think that if he could fill out the mental parts of the game, could be a very effective back. And then Malachi James, 100 meter. I just had to pause and check again because every time I see that number, I'm like, that has to be a miss. No, this kid actually ran a 100 meter dash, 100 meter. I don't think I've ever seen a number like that. I watch a lot of high school football, and a lot of times we talk about kids that are really fast at like 10.3, 10.4. This kid ran a 10.18 and did a whole lot of returning last year. That's why he doesn't have his red shirt this upcoming season. Didn't red shirt. Definitely going to be a guy that you're excited about in the return game. I think now it's on the Syracuse coaching staff. It's on Jeff Nixon, who's the running back coach, as well as the offensive coordinator. Can we turn this speed into something that we can utilize a bit more than just in special teams? And that's a big question mark because the kid's got he's very explosive and very good long speed, obviously at 10.18. I'm gonna keep saying that number until it resonates in my head that this kid's that fast. But similar deal that I was trying to explain with Jaden Hart. Just because you're a great athlete doesn't mean you're gonna be a good running back. I think this kid's got the athletic traits to turn into a good running back, but it's more on the coaching staff, I think. But they're certainly dealing with a kid with high upside, just with that kind of speed. And honestly, surprised he doesn't play receiver because that speed's usually coveted on the outside. But we'll see how it works out. 5'11", 195. He's got a good frame for how fast he is. So that's definitely talking running back at 5'11", 195. So definitely excited to see how these three guys really turn out, because I think that's going to be I really don't see anybody on this roster outside of these three this upcoming season contributing a whole lot in the running game. Nixon will be a good guy, but just watching these three, I'm definitely excited about them. Receiver room's losing a whole lot of talent as well as production. Obviously, with Trevor Pena transferring to Penn State after great career at Syracuse. Rondé Gadsden as well, a tight end, graduating to the NFL. They had another receiver from Georgia. I'm just blanking on his name. That was pretty productive as well. But it's kind of crazy the amount of production that they're losing. Quinn Allen had like 500 receiving yards also. It's kind of crazy how many yards they actually threw for last year, something like 4,700. They're still returning a decent amount for the amount that they're losing. Amari Hatcher's a guy, only 270 yards at 24. He had a lot better sophomore season in 23 with 500. Watching him at 6'3", 186, like very skinny for his frame, but got some twitchiness to him. I think he's definitely a good downfield threat right now. I just kind of want to see him to round out his game a bit more. That just so that he's not a one-trick pony. But at 6'3", they have a lot of guys that are just 6'3", just really tall. Makes things a lot easier on whoever's playing quarterback. Justice Ross Simmons didn't really do that much in last season, but 700 yards at 23. I think he was something like All Mountain West, honorable mention. Another guy is pretty tall, 6'2", 6'3", 212, a bit more filled out. Another guy, I don't necessarily think you're going to be asking him to separate a whole lot. More of a guy I think you want running across the field, get the ball in his hands. 212, he kind of becomes like a running back with the ball and getting upfield. So not a guy, similar deal. I don't think he's going to go for 700 yards in the ACC, but definitely a nice piece to have. Derek Gill Jr. as well, 6'3", another 6'3", 173. Very explosive. 173, really got to fill out the frame, I think, before you can ask him to produce at a high level. But I think they have solid upperclassmen receivers, but that's, as an outsider looking in, not an Orange fan, it's really the underclassmen where I get excited about the kids that they have on this roster. The first kid I'm going to talk about is Nick Armentano. Only a 3-star. Pretty lowly rated coming into college, but watching the highlight tape, it just didn't click for me why this kid was only a 3-star. I understand at 5'8", he's kind of behind the 8-ball frame-wise, but you watch him, this is the kid that you can trust to separate. Not necessarily upper-level athleticism, but a hell of a receiver, great route runner, great release, 5'8". You can use 5'8" to your advantage at receiver because it's kind of harder for guys to guard you if you're so friggin' small. So I think he's not a guy that is going to get NFL hype down the line, but certainly a guy I think can be very productive in college. Certainly with all the production leaving the room this year, I definitely think it's a guy that we're gonna see play a little bit, and I'm very excited. Another kid I'm very excited for is Jonte Cook. Been on the other end of the spectrum where he's a great athlete, just kind of has to turn into a great receiver. I think he's got the skill set to be more than just a gadget receiver. That's kind of how Texas utilized him, but ended up transferring to Washington after the season, and somehow he's at Syracuse now. I gave him the highest grade I could for a developmental prospect, even though he's already played 2 years of college football. I actually think this kid might be a junior or a redshirt sophomore. Anyway, I'd say he's probably the most talented receiver, maybe the most talented weapon that Syracuse has, and I think a big part of how 25 goes is going to be on how effective Jonte Cook is, and maybe even less it's on Jonte Cook and more how the coaching staff gets him involved. But I think the world of the kid as an athlete. We just see if he's able to put it all together as a receiver, and I think he will. Looking at the freshmen, another very talented class. Jalen Hornsby, 6'3", 215. Didn't really get to watch him, but Emmanuel Ross is a kid I'm very high on. I don't know if he's going to produce all that much this upcoming season. I think he will, but beyond 25 and 26, 27, I absolutely think he's got the skill set that any quarterbacks would love to utilize. Just great long speed, great explosiveness. There's going to be some question marks about, I think, how he changes directions, but I think he's well put together. Really aggressive at the catch point. Like I said, I don't think he'll produce all that much in 25. I think you'll see a little bit, and then we're going to get really excited about him going to the 26 season. That's my guess. Darius Johnson, 5'10", 160. Kid I like also, just to round out that receiver group. So I think they have solid upperclassmen, but then you look at some of the younger kids. I think you're going to ask a lot of them to contribute this upcoming season. And I think that experience is going to pay off so much in 26 and 27 because you're going to have guys that have been there but are also very talented. I don't necessarily not expecting all that much out of these three names this upcoming season. I think they'll be productive, but I think when we're talking about at the NFL level and at the national level, I think these are the guys that are going to have to contribute for Syracuse to be taken seriously at that level. Now, moving on to the tight end room, like I said, replacing Aronde Gadsden is going to be very difficult. I don't necessarily think they have anybody that can do it this upcoming season. And then if I came on here and said they got somebody that could do it at all, I would hope y'all hated my channel because that dude was super talented. And, obviously the development that happened was very important. Valari, Clement, not much to say about them, but Jamie Tremble, watching his highlight tape, watching his high school film, very explosive, really good long speed. Really don't understand. This is actually Tommy Tremble's brother. I don't see receiver for him. This is a kid that I don't see tight end for him. This is a kid that played receiver in high school and his frame at 6'4", 208. I really think I don't see a tight end for him. It's not necessarily that he's not tall enough. He's just not wide enough. I think it's a guy that they ultimately move to receiver, but as long as he's at tight end, he's going to be a 1%er in terms of athleticism. There's not going to be that many more athletic tight ends in the country than him. So we'll see how that works out. I just don't trust him to block and be good at that and be effective as an inline tight end. I think they're going to use him more as a big slot. So definitely a weapon. Certainly a weapon. We're talking about the receiving room who's going to contribute this upcoming season. Tremble's going to be a guy that, if it's not at tight end, it's going to be at receiver. Just somewhere down the line. And then the last tight end I'll talk about is Elijah Washington Baker. You talk about 6'7" being big. This kid looks taller than 6'7", and when I was watching him, I was like, this kid looks like Darnell Washington, if you remember him from Georgia. Just massive, going to dominate in the run game. Guy that the size, I think he's going to contribute this upcoming season only as a redshirt freshman. Actually had a pretty good release for how big he was. I don't think he'll ever be a guy that's going to go for Aronde Gadsden numbers. I'm sorry I keep bringing up that name, but I think more of a guy that's just going to dominate in the run game, and you need those kind of guys to fill in a room. Now, looking at this offensive line, I'm just going to try to speed up here. Not a whole lot of production coming back. Mark Petrie's a guy that's started 24 games. Zach Rice, I gave a developmental grade, even though I think he's a junior. Former 5-star. Just didn't work at UNC. Don't know why, but obviously it's kind of hard to get a 5-star as an offensive lineman. So we'll see how that turns out. TJ Ferguson from Florida State, pretty high on him, and Cam Pringle as well. This guy's a USC transfer, former 5-star. So they have good talent, I think, up front. Just not a whole lot of guys that have done it, but we'll see how the offensive line meshes. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think about Syracuse's offense. I'm going to look at the defense tomorrow, most likely. Thanks for watching, and Let me know if any other content you guys want me to do. I appreciate the insight. Thanks.